Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There's an old saying that warns us against meeting our heroes because we may end up disappointed. Well, I had the good fortune to get to know Staff Sergeant Bill Guarnere, and I promise you, Mr. Speaker, I was not disappointed. More appropriately, I would say I was awestruck. The word hero is one of the most overused words in our language. And while Staff Sergeant Bill Guarnere was certainly a hero by any definition, the word that I believe most accurately describes him is the word example. Webster defines example as a person or a way of behaving that is a model that should be followed. To the enemies of our nation, he was relentless. To his comrades, he was an unwavering symbol of reliance. And to today's soldiers, he is a legend. The gentleman from Lancaster County, standing here with me today, Representative Alment, is also a graduate of U.S. Army Airborne School and a combat infantryman, and he's well familiar with the trepidation that we feel during our first jump out of Airborne School. And as jump week approached for my company of soldiers, my anxiety level increased significantly. Aside from repeatedly reading the Bible passage that says, "Be not afraid," I turned to an additional text for a little bit of inspiration. When our training days were over, I read Stephen Ambrose's account of the actions of the men of Easy Company, 1st of the 506th, called Band of Brothers. Ambrose recounts how men like Bill Guarnere were amongst our nation's first paratroopers, when the concept of parachute infantry was in its infancy. Many of us who have completed airborne training have had the comfort of doing so after decades of advances in equipment, training, and safety. The men of Easy Company, 1st of the 506th, had no such luxury. Ambrose goes on to discuss the first jump of the 506 into France, prior to the amphibious invasion of Normandy. The paratroopers had about as bad a jump as has been recorded in history. Their comrades' aircraft were being blown from the sky, and prior to their jump, one of his comrades looked at Guarnere and said, "Let's go. They're down there waiting for you." It was after reading this account and after determining that there was no German infantry on the drop zone at Fort Benning, Georgia, that I decided to be a man about it and just jump out of the airplane. Bill Guarnere's feats during World War II are too numerous to detail, but one in particular is worth noting, and I'll reiterate the comments of the gentleman from Philadelphia. During the Battle of the Bulge, when Easy Company came under a vicious German artillery barrage, despite the Americans' best attempts to take cover, Staff Sergeant Joe Toy, a fellow Pennsylvanian, was severely wounded. His right leg was blown off. Despite repeated orders to remain in his foxhole, Guarnere decided he was not going to leave his friend, who was alone and bleeding profusely, to die on a frozen European forest. As Guarnere was dragging Toy towards cover, another German shell hit and caused the same wound and the complete loss of Guarnere's right leg. Thankfully, both survived and returned to the United States. Mr. Speaker, we live in a nation where far too many people take the freedoms we have for granted and forget men like Bill Guarnere, soldiers who have sacrificed so much to provide those freedoms. As Pennsylvanians and as Americans, we should strive to mirror the example set by Bill Guarnere. He put the needs of his nation above his own personal safety. He showed us that there are things in this world that are worth fighting and dying for. Staff Sergeant Bill Guarnere was awarded the Combat Infantryman's Badge, the Parachutist Badge with 2 combat stars, the Silver Star, the Bronze Star with oak leaf clusters, among many other awards. Mr. Speaker, the actions of Staff Sergeant Bill Guarnere have brought the highest credit to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and the United States of America. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.